Hello everybody, in this video we are going over the tentative Sylas Nerfs for 12.17. Of course, we all knew this day would come. I mean, Sylas had like a 20% play rate and like a 50% win rate, which is pretty good for him. So, these were expected, unfortunately, but also not too major. So I wanted to go over them, and there's also quite a few other interesting changes this patch, which I think will really shake up, how Sylas is really played in the meta. So also I wanted to thank you guys for 200 subscribers. It's a pretty big milestone. I haven't been publishing much lately because I have been focused on my classes, which did start recently. But I'm hoping that maybe I can get some more content out. I mean, there's also a rumored Sylas skin coming, so maybe I get some content with that as well, which would be cool. But yeah, thank you guys for 200 subscribers. That means a lot, especially when I'm not really able to add much to the channel at this moment, but yeah, anyway, let's get into the nerfs. You can see here, Sylas's base HP. It says it's going to the same thing, but this is a typo. It's actually going down by 20, so it is going to 575, and its Q cooldown is going up by 1 second at every rank. Now, these are not major changes, in my opinion. Q cooldown is probably the least impactful cooldown they could have hit. But it will be a bit of an early game nerf for Sylas, especially into more difficult lanes. The base HP will make you a little bit more vulnerable to champs like Zed, Talon, Syndra, other champs that can kind of poke you down and then burst you. And then, the Q cooldown is going to make it harder to farm, because, a lot of the times into those hard matchups, you aren't going to be able to walk up. You're going to have to farm most of the mains with your Q. And 1 second on that at level 1 is going to be a little bit rough. It's going to make it so you're going to miss a couple more minions than you normally would have pre-nerf. So the changes are a bit rough to his early game. Once you get past the early game, though, I mean, 20 health is nothing. And the Q cooldown, you're going to build a lot of ability haste anyway. And you're also going to have some more levels in it, and you won't need to use it for farming anymore, so it's not going to be as impactful. So, on their own, the nerfs hit his early game a little bit, but past that, it's nothing too major. But what's interesting is some of the other changes this patch. So, just point out, we do have Kassadin Buffs, but these don't really matter. These are pretty useless. His Q just has a lower cooldown, so make sure you're paying attention to that, and just going in a little bit sooner after he Qs, so that he doesn't have the shield back up, because Kassadin is a matchup that you want to play very aggressive into. Once he hits 6, if you haven't got like a kill or two, it's going to be a lot harder to play the game. But anyway, down here we have Azir and Ahri nerfs, which is amazing because those champs are really annoying to deal with on Sylas. So we see Azir's WAP ratio is going down by 10%, and his E cooldown is going up by like 3 to 1 second, which is kind of crazy. Azir is very popular right now, at least in high elo. I'm not sure what his pick rate is in the more like average MMRs like gold and platinum and silver. But I've been dealing with a lot of Azirs, and it's really annoying, especially his laning phase. And unfortunately, these nerfs do not affect his laning phase, which is pretty oppressive in my opinion. But I think that they'll hit his late game with the AP ratio nerf hard enough to where he just won't be picked in the first place. Because why would you pick a champion that's just going to get outscaled? Especially when it's Azir and you're supposed to scale anyway. So, I think these nerfs will hit him to such a degree that he just won't be picked in the first place, even though the early game is still going to be as rough as it was before. But, even if you do face an Azir, you can just, farm up, don't die, and you'll probably scale to a better degree against him than you would have normally done. Now against Ahri, this matchup isn't actually too difficult because you can all-in her somewhat easily if she messes up. But, it's always nice to see Ahri nerfs because that champ is really annoying to deal with. So base HP going down by 20, it's same as Sylas, but, she has lower base HP to begin with. So this is actually really nice because it makes her more punishable when she does mess up, like missing a charm. Because that lower HP by 20, I mean, Ahri's a very squishy champion already, so it's just going to make it a lot easier to all-in her and 100 to 0 her in those early levels. Maybe you land a Q or two and you get her a little bit lower, and then you can go in for an all-in with Ignite, that sort of stuff. And because her E charm duration is going down by a little bit early game, it's going to make it so that even if you do get hit by a charm, you're not going to be punished as much. So, if she throws out a charm on you, like just randomly, and it hits, you're only CC'd for 1.2 seconds. You just wait until it's done, and then you E on her and she has nothing to stop you, because she'll probably have W'd, so her movement speed bonus is gone, and she doesn't have any peel for herself besides that and her charm, which will both be down. So then you just run her down and one-shot her. Now if we go down to the Bruisers, Trundle, Wukong, Renekton are all getting nerfed. I think the Trundle nerfs are pretty substantial. It's going to make it a lot harder to have his W permanently up. Wukong is also getting hit a little bit. I mean, base movement speed is pretty impactful, and the attack speed is going down by a lot. And Renekton is getting some early game nerfs. Now, these are all nice because, you know, these are all problematic champions for Sylas. Maybe Trundle not as much so, because his ultimate is very strong. But, you know, like Renekton and Wukong especially, their ultimates are not the greatest, and they do kind of just point-and-click crowd control you to death, either in 1v1s or in team fights. So, you know, having them nerfed and just maybe pushing them a little bit out of the meta is going to make it so much easier, because Sylas has such a better time against other junglers. Like Jarvan, Kayn are so much easier to deal with because they have big hitboxes, they're squishy, and you just one-shot them when they walk into your lane at level 4, because they don't know what Sylas' damage is. So, yeah, getting Wukong out of the meta and Trundle is going to be really nice. Renekton's not a jungler, but, you know, still, either way, he's really annoying a champ to deal with for Sylas. So, yeah. Then if we go down to all these Zhonya's changes, there's a lot here. Seeker's Armguard is going up by 10 AP, Stopwatch is going up by 100 gold, and then the Hourglass itself is going up by 400 gold, but you also get 15 AP, and you're getting 5 ability haste, which I believe does increase the item's cost efficiency. I don't actually know. I didn't do the exact math on that. Maybe I should have, but oh well. But yeah, I think it's going to be slightly more cost efficient for the stats. And Seeker's Armguard is actually a pretty decent item now, because before I thought it was pretty garbage. I mean, you get like, what, 20 AP, 15 armor for 1,000 gold, but now 30 AP, that's pretty respectable. You're not really giving up that much, and you're also getting that armor. So against heavy AD comps, it's even better. Because you're not giving up as much damage as if you went the Fiendish Codex first. Now, Stopwatch is going to be a little bit annoying, because, you know, Stopwatch is such a broken item on Sylas. It's broken on every champ in the game. But, yeah, Sylas really needs the stasis, so it's just going to be a little bit harder to get that on maybe an off back. You know, you're like, oh, I went back and I have 650 gold instead of going an Amped Tome. Let me just get a Stopwatch because that's more useful. Can't do that anymore. You need a little bit more to sink into that investment. But yeah, as for the Zhonya's itself, I mean, you're still going to be building it every single game. The active is just too useful. The only time I would ever consider not building Zhonya's is if the enemy team literally has no attack damage on their team. If they are 5 AP, I would probably consider like Banshees and Spear Visage instead, and maybe not go Zhonya's. That's like the only time. But yeah, I mean, you're building Zhonya's every game because the active is just too overpowered. And it's desperately required on Sylas, because Sylas is a pretty vulnerable AP melee champion, so it's basically meant for him. Now, yeah, now that we've gone over all the major changes, I didn't want to talk about the First Strike versus the Conqueror debate, which is not really much of a debate anymore, because I think First Strike is just worse now. You know, they did nerf First Strike a couple patches ago, nerfed its damage by multiplicatively 10%, which nerfs the gold generation by 10%. And I just don't think that it's worth it anymore. I mean, you're kind of sacrificing a lot of early game power. You do get that really heavy snowball potential in the mid game, but you're losing out on so much potential damage and healing from the Conqueror build. So I've been going Conqueror. I was like one-tricking First Strike. If you look at all my videos for the past like several months, all of my replay commentaries were on First Strike games, but not anymore. I've been going Conqueror recently, the past week, and it has really been working out, and especially with the Q nerfs incoming, which was a big part of the First Strike build, since you did max Q second, you know, it's just going to be worse. And I already think that it's probably worse than the Conqueror build, since the nerfs, and since the meta has changed a little bit since a while ago. And yeah, I mean, I think Conqueror's just better. So, if you do still play First Strike, take it from me, I think Conqueror's better at this point. But yeah, it pains me to say that, but I believe it is true. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much every change. Conqueror build's better now, in my opinion. And you know, these are nerfs, of course. I mean, Sylas is getting weaker, but at the same time, some of the other problematic champions are also getting nerfed. And I don't think that these nerfs will really impact him that much outside of the laning phase. So, yeah. You know, if you guys do like this content, you want to see more, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know any comments. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and thanks for watching.